Werewolves' ability is to determine a player's role by catching their scent when they whisper to each other. This takes several seconds to complete and does not need to be activated from the book. Every match has at least one werewolf, and some matches have more than one. If there are multiple werewolves in a match, the werewolves will all know each other's identities. The werewolves win if the townsfolk don't manage to eliminate one or more of them. If the werewolves all vote for the saint during the elimination phase, the werewolves win, even if the townsfolk manage to eliminate a werewolf. The general strategy for the werewolves is to hide among the townsfolk, to keep their role secret, and convince the group to vote out one of their own. Using Whisper to attempt to find the saint can also be a path to victory. The villager role can affect the elimination vote at the end of each match by nominating a player as ringleader. The ringleader's vote counts double. All villagers in play may nominate a player as a ringleader, and all villagers who nominate must agree. The villager's nominate ability is activated from the book. There may be more than one villager in any given match. The general strategy for the villagers is to deduce who is most trustworthy and agree to empower that player as the group's ringleader. The tracker is a townsfolk who can listen for the presence of werewolves on one side of the table or the other. The tracker uses the book to activate their ability, then leans left or right to listen for werewolves. If the tracker hears a werewolf on that half of the table, indicators will show who may be a werewolf. If the tracker hears no werewolf, indicators will show which players are definitely not werewolves. The tracker can use this ability only once per match. The general strategy for the tracker is to choose which side of the table to listen to after suspicion initially develops, then share the results. The tracker is very powerful, as they can implicate or vindicate one half of the group. For this reason, werewolves often claim to be the tracker, the better to cast suspicion on a wide group of other players. The Watcher is a townsfolk who can stare at another player for a period of time and learn two possible roles for that player. The Watcher uses the book to activate their ability and stares at another player until the timer completes. One of these roles is true, while the other is obviously false. But the Watcher does not know which is which. The Watcher can use this ability only once per match. The general strategy for the Watcher is to share this information with the group to help the other players narrow down the possibilities of who might be a werewolf. The Gossip is a townsfolk who gains information about other players over time. This ability is passive and does not need to be activated from the book. With this ability, the Gossip learns one possible role for two players. One of these roles is true, while the other may or may not be true. The Gossip does not know which is which, however. The general strategy for the Gossip is to share this information with the group to help the other players narrow down the possibilities of who might be a werewolf. The Turncloak is a townsfolk whose sympathies lie with the werewolves. The Turncloak knows who the werewolves are, but the werewolves don't know the Turncloak's identity. The Turncloak wins only if the werewolves win. As a general strategy, the Turncloak shifts suspicion away from the werewolves and onto other townsfolk. Also, the Turncloak counts as a townsfolk. So if the Turncloak can convince the townsfolk to eliminate them, the werewolves will win, which means the Turncloak will also win. No one understands the deviant's pain. Neither a townsfolk nor a werewolf. The deviant is a team of one. The deviant has no unique ability, but wins only if they manage to be eliminated. The deviant's victory condition trumps all other win conditions, meaning the deviant always wins if they're eliminated by vote. The general strategy for the deviant is to draw suspicion for being a werewolf without being overly obvious, in order to gain the most votes in the end. The astrologer is a townsfolk who knows with certainty that one particular role is present in a match. The astrologer's ability is activated by staring up to read the stars, and is recorded on the information and roles pages of the book. As a general strategy, the astrologer can confirm who's lying if someone claims to be a role that the drifter knows is not present. But not all liars are werewolves. Sometimes other roles lie to protect their identities as well. Be wary. Werewolves often like to claim to be the astrologer to avoid suspicion. The drifter is a townsfolk who knows some of the roles that are not present in a match. The drifter's ability is automatically updated at the start of a match and is recorded on the information and roles pages of the book. This lets the drifter know who's lying if someone claims to be a role that the drifter knows is not present. The general strategy for the drifter is to share their learned information with the group. But they can also choose to withhold it for a short time, to see who's lying about being a role that isn't actually present. The Houndsman is a townsfolk with the ability to scent adjacent players' roles. The Houndsman does this by leaning and whispering with an adjacent player, and this ability is not activated from the book. The Houndsman is a powerful role whose general strategy is to whisper with adjacent players and share with the group whether those players are on the townsfolk or werewolf side. Of course, the Houndsman must convince the group that they are actually the Houndsman and not a whispering werewolf. The Saint is a townsfolk, but must be protected. The Saint may pray by bowing their head, which will indicate the identity of a werewolf. But be careful! If the werewolves all vote for the Saint during the elimination phase, the werewolves win, even if the townsfolk manage to eliminate a werewolf. The general strategy for the Saint is to cleverly inform others of the werewolf's identity. But sharing that knowledge in open conversation will expose the Saint to the werewolves. Also, whispering with a werewolf is another way to be caught.